So the idea that mainland species would journey across the ocean and colonize oceanic islands also applies to plants, not just animals. In fact, it may be that plants have an easier time getting out to these oceanic islands. Certainly the wind can blow some seeds, birds might take some seeds, and in fact it's possible that seeds can float just as animals might do on vegetation floating from the mainland out to the island. So if we find some species of plant on the mainland and also find it on some oceanic island, question, of course, is how did it get there? And if floating is the most likely explanation, then we would predict that the seeds of this species can survive in salt water for the length of time it would take to get out to these islands, right? So the islands should have species whose seeds can survive an ocean voyage. That's the next area in which we'll take a look, and Darwin did some experiments to investigate this kind of possibility. What he did was he took plant species found on some of these islands, and he would soak the seeds in salt water to see how long they could survive. So he would soak, let's say some species, soak them in for salt water for an hour, and then other seeds from that same species, soak them for 2 hours and 3 hours and 4 hours and 10 hours and 20 hours, and see at what point does the seed no longer germinate again? At what point will it die? So we can imagine there's variation in the ability of seeds from different species to survive different lengths of time in salt water. So here we've got species A and B over here on the mainland, and species A is found over on the island, but species B is not found on the island. And when we dunk its seeds in salt water, we find that they die very quickly in salt water. Well, that would explain then why it is that we don't find species B on the island, because the ocean journey was not possible. The seeds died before they could reach the island. So with this kind of idea in mind, Darwin looked for patterns. Which plant species were found on these islands? Were they the ones that had seeds that were able to survive long periods of time in ocean water? And using our if and then reasoning, we can set it up like this. If plant seeds float across the ocean and colonize islands, and we, or Charles Darwin, soaks seeds of different species in seawater for different amounts of time, then our prediction would be seeds of plant species that survive the longest in seawater should be the ones found on the most distant oceanic islands. And to see how this might work mathematically, we can do a sample calculation here. So what we're interested in is calculating the range, the maximum predicted range for a particular species, knowing how long its seed can survive in salt water. So here's the setup. You got a mainland here. You got an ocean current 3 miles per hour going out to the island. Here's the island. We've got two species, seed A, seed B. Seed A can last 40 hours in salt water. Seed B, 30 hours in salt water. So if we want to find the maximum range for species A, for example, where it's going to be a distance equals rate times time formula. We got the maximum range, the distance that seed A could travel, is equal to the rate, the current, the ocean current, taking it out to the island, times how long the seed can survive in the salt water. 3 miles per hour times 40 hours. The hours will cancel, leaving us with 120 miles. So seed A has the ability then to travel a maximum of 120 miles given the speed of this current. Well, if the island is 100 miles away from the mainland and the maximum range is 120 miles, then it's possible, it would be theoretically possible for the species to colonize that island if some of its seeds were washed out and got picked up by this ocean current. On the other hand, if we already find the species on this island, then it can be understood, it fits with the idea that it colonized the island by the seeds floating out to the island. Of course, it could be that birds brought the seeds as well, but at least we know it would be possible for the seeds to float out to the island. Notice seed B with a survival time of 30 hours. If we do the math there, we'd have 3 miles per hour times 30 hours would be 90 miles. And that means that the seeds of species B would die before they could reach the island, again assuming this 3-mile-per-hour current. So here we could make a prediction. We should not find plant species B out on the island. And if we did find it there, then that might lead us to some alternative way of it getting out there. If it didn't float, maybe then birds did take it out or some other alternative way.